пішов!
At 5:15 hours local time, heavy fighting was reported across a contested sector of eastern Ukraine after Ukrainian forces, including elements identified as the Azov Brigade, allegedly conducted a rapid offensive operation that resulted in Russian units becoming encircled, according to claims circulating from the battlefield. Independent verification of the reported developments was not immediately available.
Прикривай, блядь! Прикривай, сука! Залупа, прикривай тебе чи ні, блядь? Тримай, раз!
Military sources familiar with the situation said Ukrainian assault units launched coordinated attacks supported by reconnaissance drones, precision artillery, and armored vehicles. The offensive reportedly focused on exploiting weak points in Russian defensive positions, allowing Ukrainian forces to penetrate multiple defensive lines before advancing towards strategic supply routes. According to battlefield accounts, the breakthrough created significant pressure on Russian formations operating near the front line.
Підер висовує каску перед тобою! Сука! Заєбаш його!
As Ukrainian forces advanced, they reportedly seized several key road junctions, limiting Russian units' ability to maneuver or receive reinforcements. Analysts noted that disrupting logistics has become a central feature of modern combat in Ukraine, where both sides rely heavily on continuous resupply to sustain operations.
Братан, термобар закинеш?
The Azov Brigade, described by Ukrainian officials as one of the country's experienced assault formations, was reported to have played a prominent role during the operation.
Поліськи хуярить! 2 метри,
Sources claim the brigade spearheaded attacks against fortified positions before expanding the breach to allow additional Ukrainian units to move forward. These accounts have not been independently confirmed.
Отут підар сидить, сука. Я йому гранату уїбало. Уєбіще вилазить не хоче. Вилазь, сука!
Military observers caution that reports emerging during active combat are often incomplete and may change as additional information becomes available. Battlefield maps published by various sources frequently differ in their assessments of territorial control, and official statements from both sides may emphasize successes while minimizing setbacks.
Єсть, підараси, пулемет. Зразу виставив пулемет.
Я бачив, як він, сука, виставив пушку.
Гранату мені принеси. Щас я вас викурю, сука.
If the reported encirclement is confirmed, analysts say Russian forces could face increasing logistical challenges, including shortages of ammunition, fuel, and medical supplies. Encircled units generally have limited options, attempting a breakout, awaiting relief from reinforcing forces, or conducting an organized withdrawal if escape routes remain open.
Давай, ми нормальні, блядь, будеш жити.
Сука, там, блядь, бойниця, нахуй. Старий. Там бойниця, блядь, давай гранату. Там бойниця прямо, блядь, вилазить, блядь, дирка.
Russian military officials had not publicly acknowledged reports of an encirclement at the time of publication. Previous engagements have demonstrated that rapidly changing battlefield conditions can significantly alter tactical situations within hours.
Підарів, нахуй! Гази, сука, давай! Давай!
Defense analysts also noted that drone warfare continues to shape operations on both sides of the conflict. Unmanned aerial systems are increasingly used for reconnaissance, artillery targeting, and battle damage assessment, allowing commanders to make decisions based on near real-time intelligence. Electronic warfare capabilities, however, remain a major factor, with both militaries attempting to disrupt enemy communications and drone operations.
Сука! Быстрее, блядь! Сука, граната! Ебать!
The reported breakthrough follows months of intense fighting characterized by attritional combat and localized offensives. Both Ukraine and Russia have invested heavily in layered defensive positions, making significant territorial gains difficult and costly. As a result, any successful penetration of prepared defenses is viewed as tactically significant, particularly if it threatens supply lines or command infrastructure.
Граната! Граната, ляж!
Civilian authorities in nearby communities reportedly urged residents to remain in shelters as artillery exchanges continued throughout the area. Humanitarian organizations expressed concern about the ongoing impact of fighting on civilians, emphasizing the need for safe evacuation routes and access to essential services where security conditions permit. Independent experts stressed that reliable assessments of the reported operation will likely require satellite imagery, geolocated footage, and confirmation from multiple sources. Until then, the full scale of the alleged breakthrough and any resulting encirclement remains uncertain.
Сдавайся, чертяка ебана!
The conflict continues to evolve rapidly, with both Ukrainian and Russian forces conducting offensive and defensive operations along multiple sectors of the front. As additional information emerges, military analysts expect a clearer picture of the reported engagement and its potential operational significance.
Мы не будем стрелять, выходи, сдается. Попробуешь кинуть гранату, сразу дверь!
Ukraine's progress offers a rare window of opportunity to increase the pressure on Putin and create the conditions for a negotiated end to Europe's largest war since World War II. However, this window is likely to prove temporary. Kyiv's partners must therefore seize the moment and demonstrate that they are capable of acting decisively on the international stage by increasing support for Ukraine.
Уебан, ты бачил, сука?
Пидор, ебать!
Все. Все. Минус.
The last real chance for Ukraine to end the war came in the final weeks of 2022. The success of Ukraine's Kharkiv counteroffensive and the liberation of Kherson had allowed Kyiv to gain the battlefield initiative, leaving Putin's retreating army in a state of demoralized disarray. The war appeared to be entering a decisive phase, with Ukraine poised to defeat Russia's invasion. At this critical moment, Kyiv's Western partners lost their nerve. Their fear of escalation handed Putin a lifeline. Western caution meant that Russia was able to regroup, mobilize additional manpower, expand defense production, and construct extensive fortifications. By the time Ukraine launched a major offensive the following summer, Russia had recovered and the chance had passed. As the tide of war turns once again in Ukraine's favor, European leaders must now avoid repeating the mistakes of 2022. Since the start of the current year, there have been growing indications that the initiative has passed from Russia to Ukraine. Along the front lines of the war, the Russian army has struggled to advance throughout 2026 while suffering record casualties. Although Moscow can still call on significant manpower reserves, Putin is currently believed to be losing more men in Ukraine than he can realistically recruit without ordering a politically risky mass mobilization. Ukraine's position is also visibly improving beyond the battlefield. The country's rapidly evolving domestic drone industry has made it possible to launch a highly effective campaign of mid-range strikes against Russian logistics. This is disrupting the invasion and isolating occupied Crimea. In parallel, expanding long-range Ukrainian drone strikes against military and industrial targets deep inside Russia have sparked a fuel crisis and brought the invasion home to the Russian public. Reports of new attacks and images of burning Russian refineries have become a routine feature on Russian social media. Ukraine is also targeting Russian shipping with increasing success in a bid to starve the Kremlin of vital export revenues. Together with the cumulative effect of international sanctions, these Ukrainian strikes are creating mounting difficulties for the Kremlin war effort, while also threatening to destabilize the domestic situation inside Russia. This has led to increasingly upbeat assessments of Ukraine's prospects. In order to take full advantage of Putin's current predicament, however, Ukraine will need more support from the country's allies. The United States under President Trump remains an indispensable partner, particularly in terms of intelligence sharing and advanced technological support. However, it has been clear since early 2025 that the current U.S. administration is no longer prepared to carry the primary burden for sustaining Ukraine's war effort. Instead, Europe must continue to increase support. Priorities include addressing Ukraine's manpower constraints. European governments should reconsider long-standing restrictions on financing military personnel costs. With Ukraine's national budget under extraordinary strain, meaningful reforms aimed at improving military recruitment, retention, and mobilization require substantial additional resources to fund competitive salaries and incentives for service.
Дай мені місце!
Що, я виліз з окопа? Вилазь, давай.
Supporting these costs should be viewed as an investment in European security rather than as budgetary assistance to Ukraine alone. Additional funding for expanded training missions, specialized programs for drone operators and electronic warfare specialists, rehabilitation initiatives, and battlefield medical support would all further strengthen Ukraine's military position. Another crucial element is support for Ukraine's defense sector. Rather than relying primarily on weapons transfers from existing stockpiles, European governments should expand the use of EU mechanisms to provide predictable, long-term funding for Ukrainian defense production. Ukraine has already demonstrated its ability to innovate and manufacture at speed, but still lacks sufficient resources to scale up output. Europe should also grant Ukraine privileged access to critical technologies, including advanced electronics, cloud computing infrastructure, artificial intelligence tools, and communication systems. In many cases, the obstacle is not technological scarcity, but regulatory barriers and export control regimes designed for peacetime conditions rather than a major European war.
Плюс прийняв.
Давай, тоді підриваюся, я стріляю.
Industrial integration is equally important. Ukrainian defense companies should be incorporated into European procurement frameworks, joint ventures, research programs, and supply chains. Combat-proven Ukrainian systems should gain accelerated access to European markets through streamlined certification procedures. Europe clearly has much to offer Ukraine, but Ukraine also has much to offer Europe. Psychological resilience should also become part of Europe's support strategy. After more than 4 years of full-scale war, combat stress, trauma, and post-traumatic stress disorder are no longer individual challenges but strategic issues. Europe possesses world-class expertise addressing mental health and rehabilitation. Integrating these capabilities into Ukraine's military recovery system would strengthen the long-term resilience of the country just as surely as ammunition or equipment supplies.
Через дорогу. Ударив там під. Ну, ти сай заді мене. В мене є.
Finally, Europe must preserve political unity while increasing the cost of aggression for Moscow. That means stronger enforcement of existing sanctions, tighter controls on sanction circumvention networks, and a more coordinated effort to counter Russian influence operations abroad.
Все нормально, все нормально.
It also requires a serious information strategy. Europe possesses enormous analytical, media, and technological resources, yet Russian disinformation continues to undermine public support for Ukraine. Europe must not only defend itself against hostile narratives, but actively challenge the legitimacy of Russian aggression and the narratives that sustain it, both inside and outside Russia.
Чисто?
Taken together, these measures would amount to something more significant than support for Ukraine. They would represent European strategic agency. For years, European leaders have spoken about strategic autonomy and Europe's emergence as a serious security actor. The coming months may provide the clearest test yet of whether those ambitions are realistic.
То бронебойні, нахуй?
Перед вами 50 метрів вперед, 50 метрів вперед. Їхали.
Плюс, плюс.